Yes, it was chapter 13. This is called Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness. Okay, so who wants to read first? Well, let Jai Krishna read first, right?
Okay. So starting from text 1 and 2. Oh, okay. Arjuna Vacha Prakritim Purusham Jaiva Kshetram Kshetra Ginam Evacha Etad Veditum Ichami Gyananam Gyanayam Chakeshava Sri Bhagavadgita Idam Saritram Kaunteya Kshetram Abidyate Etadyo Vetitam Prahu Kshetra Gya Ititad Vidaha. Arjuna said, "O my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field, and the knower of the field, and of knowledge, and the object of knowledge." The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, this body, O son of Kunti, is called the field, and one who knows this body is called the knower of the field. Kshetra Gyanam Chapti Mam Vidhi Sava Kshetreshu Bharata Kshetra Gyanayo Gyanam Yat Taj Gyanam Matam Mama. O scion of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies, and to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion. Tadshetram Yatcha Yadrikcha Yad Vikari Yatascha Yat Sachayo Yad Prabhavascha Tat Samashena Me Shrinu. Now, please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what his influences are. Shall I carry on?
So that's number 4, is it?
Yeah.
Omagam Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Auravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Astatya Deshatarine. So this is the last 6 chapters. First 6 chapters are Karma Yoga. Middle 6 chapters are Bhakti Yoga, which we've just finished last time, and last 6 chapters are Jnana Yoga. So Jnana means the philosophy, philosophical understanding of the entanglement in this material world. And so it talks about, in the first 2 verses, it talks about, well, in the first verse, Prakriti, Purusha, and Kshetra. And so there's 3 things here, actually, although it's mentioning half a dozen things. Prakriti, that's the material energy, that's this body, or what we call Kshetra, the field of activities. Purusha is the let's just read through it here in just a minute. Yeah, Jnanam. Jnanam is knowledge. Kshetragya means that the knower of the field. So there's two knowers. There's the individual soul and there's the super soul. So we'll go through all this as we go through the rest of the Gita, the rest of this chapter. And Jnanam is knowledge, and Gayam is the knowable. Oh, that's the same again as the field. That's what we're trying to understand, right? Kshetra is the body. Kshetragya is both soul and Krishna. Jnanam is perfect knowledge. Krishna, so Kshetra the body, Kshetragya the know of the two knowers of the body, and Jnanam is that knowledge by which we know. So this is explained in 2 and 3, which we've just read, and then 4 and 5. So now we're starting in 4 and 5 to explain these 6 topics about Kshetra, the field, Kshetragya, the knower of the field, and and then in 6 and 7, the composition, qualities, changes, origin of the body. Then in 8 to 12, we talk about knowledge. 2 to 3, 4 to 5, promise to explain these subjects. Then 6 to 7, it starts by talking about Kshetra, the field of activities, this body, how it's constituted, what its activities are, how things are working in this particular body, consciousness, all that. And then the next one is how to understand that body. Yeah, 8 to 12 is like the constituent, not the constituents, or the constituents of knowledge. What activities and what qualities will actually develop knowledge? And then 13 to 19, I'll talk about the object of knowledge. So the object of knowledge is Gayam or Kshetra. So we've got 6 subjects, but they're like duplicated, yeah? And so what's the objects of knowledge is the soul and actually it says here the soul and the super soul. We're trying to understand the field, obviously, but how it's actually working, who's actually controlling the field. So 13 to 19 starts talking about Gayam, which means the soul and the super soul. And the qualities of both. One's the soul has, although it's similar to the super soul, there's a big difference in quality or in quantity. The qualities are the same, but we are not the supreme, so therefore in quantity we're much smaller. And then in 20 to 26, it'll talk about Prakriti. This is the material energy, or this of which the Kshetra or the field is made up, and Purusha, and how they're connected, how we become entangled in this world. And then 23, it explains how ultimately the ultimate Purusha or knower of the body or enjoyer of the body is the super soul. And if we know the combination of all these things, how they're working, then we can have liberation. So that's what a jnani would do. First of all, he would try to understand, what this field of activity is actually, this material body. And then he would try to understand how he's actually entrapped in the body, how he's connected with the body, and what's causing that connection. And then by knowledge, he'd start to work on breaking down that connection. But a devotee doesn't have to do that. It's good for us to know this because, it's actually an added tool to our Krishna consciousness. But ultimately, even if we can't understand this properly, if we have enough faith to engage in devotional service, and develop devotion, that will actually help. That will solve the problem. But at the end of this particular chapter, it talks about the different. It says actually that one who understands this connection, how everything is working, he can attain liberation. So that's a jnani. A jnani would have to do that. And there's different levels of liberation, but it says that, and it'll explain that also, but it says that, it doesn't explain so much about the different levels. That's explained in the 4th chapter. But it'll say that if somebody's prepared to hear, even if he doesn't know anything, then he can understand this process. And somebody who's actually acquired knowledge is a true seer of things. When we get knowledge, we see, right? I see, we understand. Then he can understand the connection between the body and the individual soul and the overarching, what can I say, governance of the super soul, which is controlling everything. Okay, that's just a general outline of what we're going to read. So yeah, we said at the beginning that we talked about Bhakti Yoga in these middle 6 chapters. In the first 6 chapters, we talked about Karma Yoga. And now we're talking about Jnana Yoga. And it's talking about how this Jnana, if there's some tinge of Bhakti, if there's a connection with Krishna, then there's a result. And that can eventually develop into, even a Jnani can develop Kevala Bhakti, or unalloyed devotional service. But if there's no connection with Krishna, then it's just there's no liberation, there's no benefit, it's just a material activity, it's taking us nowhere. Any questions on that? It's quite, you have to really study it to understand it properly. I'm just going over it. And sometimes I get them wrong, But basically, we're talking about the body, the individual soul, and the super soul. That's all we need to know. And, we are actually the enjoyer of the body, and the super soul is actually granting us permission to do that according to our desires, like that. So, in the last chapter, Arjuna asked 6 questions. What is material nature? Prakriti. Who's the enjoyer? Purusha. What's the field of activities? Kshetram. Who the knower of the field is? That's individual soul and super soul. Jnanam. What's that knowledge by which we can understand that? And Gayam, the object of knowledge. The object of knowledge is the individual soul and the super soul. Okay, so it explains all these things in 3, 4, and 5. We're going to do a section which covers all these things, sorry, in 2 to 7. We've already covered up to 4, so we're going to carry on. And we'll just go over what we said in 2. You know, the conditioned soul's trying to enjoy the body. That's the first thing. You know, with the body's made of material senses, and he's absorbed in the body and is therefore trying to, you know, enjoy the body. And anyway, no, I'm not going to actually go into so much detail. It's just going to become, you know, because it's going. If we read this chapter and read all the poets, you know, gradually, if we keep reading it, it becomes clear. And if I keep using all these terms, and I'll try and keep it as simple as possible so that we get a general understanding of the chapter. Otherwise, in this trying to cover a chapter or that biggest part of a chapter in 1 hour, it's going to actually not be so fruitful. Yeah. Okay. So I'm not going to spend too much time. I think a general overview will be better. Ooh. Carry on, Krishna. Or we can, yeah, carry on.
Okay. Chapter 5. Rishibir Baha.
Verse 5.
It is 5, isn't it?
Yeah.
Rishibir Bahuda Gitam Chandabir Vivid He Pritak Brahma Sutra Pade Chaiva Hetuma Bahir Vinishchitat Tatai. That knowledge of the field of activity and the knower of the activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in the Vedanta Sutra, with all reasoning as to cause and effect.
Okay, just a minute.
Very complicated, isn't it?
Yeah. So basically, it's saying that, you know, although Krishna's speaking here, he's actually referring to Shastra. That's what this is actually pointing out. He's not just actually speaking as if he's the supreme authority and therefore you just do what I say. He's quoting the great sages just like an ordinary person would, just to actually back up his actual knowledge that he's giving. And it's in the Vedas, it's in Vedic writings. It'll mention Parashara in the purport. Okay. Next one.
Shall I carry on?
Well, who's to read? We've got 4 readers. So we can let, we've got 4 readers, yeah. 5 readers. Or one's driving, 4 readers. So maybe see Sakarani Machidi wants to read. And then Don can read next.
Text 6. Mahabhutani ahankaro buddhir avyaktam evacha indriyani dashaikam cha panchachendriya gocharaha ichadvesha sukham dukham sangatas chetana tritihi etakshetram samashina savikaram udavritam. The 5 great elements, force, ego, intelligence, the unmanifested, and the 10 senses and the mind, the 5 sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate, the life symptoms and convictions. All these are considered in summary to be the field of activities and its interactions.
Okay, so that just sounds like a solid statement, but it's actually that these elements or these points that it's bringing up, they're not exhaustive. There's more you could add to it, in other words, when it's describing the field of activities. Yeah, some are subtle and some are gross. The gross ones we've heard many, many times, but maybe we haven't heard the one like hatred, happiness, distress, desire and hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate, life symptoms, convictions. Yeah. So these are all making up this particular field of activity. He's talking about the field of activity. Is everybody okay with that? And in number 6, if anybody's read the purport, it talks about Anamaya, Pranamaya, Jnanamaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya. So Maya means energy, and it's basically saying that in this world, or in existence, actually, these 5 things exist. Some living entities, Anamaya. They're just trying to find food. You know, even an amoeba, it needs to actually sustain itself. So it just knows that I have to actually try and find something to eat. It's actually his limit of consciousness. And then pranamaya means we understand we're a living entity and we have life functions. This is most people, actually. I just go down to the pub for a swift half, you know, after work. And this is life, you know. I mean, things somehow or other. If you talk about, you know, philosophy, they think you're crackers, you know. You know, there's better things to talk about than philosophy. What on the 3:30 at Haydock, you know, like that. So this is pranamaya, and then there's jnanamaya. That means we understand that, you know, there's something different from the body. And then Vijnanamaya, realization of our spiritual nature. And then Anandamaya, this is the bliss. This is spiritual life. When we understand our real nature, we engage in spiritual life. So all those are on Anandamaya. Put your hands up. Put your hands up. No. All those are on Anamaya. Put your hands up. When is it Prashadam time? Okay. So next we're going to 8 to 12. We're going to go on to knowledge. What are the constituents of knowledge? And this is a very good. If we read through this section, 8 to 12, then we can understand how we should act in this world. Because these points, they actually we develop knowledge by them. Who's next? Sita Thakurani, she was reading, wasn't she?
Yes. Okay, I'll continue. Now it's a long verse.
So we've just to recap, we've just done, you know, 6 and 7, which is talking about the constituents of this body. That's actually knowledge, you know, knowing the field. But how to obtain that knowledge is next, at 8 to 12.
12, yes. Amanitvam Adam Pitvam Ahimsak Shatir Arjavam Acharyopasanam Shaucham Steryam Atma Vinigraha Indriyartesu Vairagyam Anahankara Evacha Janma Mrityu Jara Viti dukkha doshanu darshanam. Don't know what happened. Asaktir anabhishvaga putradara grida dishu nityam cha samchitabnam istanito papatishu Maichanaya yogana bhaktir avya vicharhini vivikta nesha sevitvam haratirjana samsadi adhyatma jnana nityatvam tatvagna darshanam etai jnanam iti proktam agnanam yad ato nityaha. This is place. Are we all right? I don't know what that is. Sorry. Some message on the screen. Humility, pridelessness, nonviolence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest, even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization, and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever that may be is ignorance.
Okay. So yeah, everything starts with humility. Unless we're actually, humble, nobody can tell us anything. So, at least we have to understand that we don't know anything. If we actually come to that point, we can actually make advancement. And what's our yardstick? Dayananda Swami. He was the Prime Minister of the whole of Bengal under the Nawab Hussain Shah. And he just dropped everything. And eventually he met Lord Chaitanya at, what's that place there? Not Allahabad, Kashi.
Prayag? No, that wasn't Prayag.
I can't remember now. I know that Rupa Goswami met at Prayag. Goswami might have also met there. I'm not sure now. Maybe either Prayag or Kashi. Anyway, first thing he said to Lord Chaitanya, he says, "Who am I? Why am I suffering? Why are the threefold miseries always giving me problems? People say I'm actually learned, but I don't even know this." And so he's setting the example that material knowledge and material position are not the qualification. And so he completely surrendered to Lord Chaitanya in that way. And so, when we come to that point, we can start to go forward. And every devotee has come to that point in order to take up this movement to some degree. Still, we've still got some skeletons in the cupboard, and we still sometimes take shelter of them, but we know a little bit, but eventually, as we progress in devotional service, we realize that the more I know, the more I realize that I don't know, like that. Okay. So any questions on these qualities? Pridelessness seems the same as humility, but there is a slight difference. Humility means not expecting any respect from anybody. And pridelessness means not wanting some position, not wanting to be famous. So there's a subtle difference. Ahimsa means not putting others into difficulty. In other words, not physical, not physically, but ahimsa means that we don't send anybody in the wrong direction in life. In other words, we don't open our mouth unless we can help them to actually achieve the goal of life. Otherwise, we're committing ahimsa. Okay, I'll not go through them all, but And Shanti, tolerance, that's the first instruction of the Bhagavadgita. We have to tolerate our situation and not complain. And then if we tolerate, just get on with the work in hand, we can actually start to understand things. So this is knowledge. So next we go on to the understanding the knower. The first knower in 13 is the individual soul, and then 14 onwards it'll talk about the super soul. So maybe Anthony can read. Oh, it's Don, isn't it? Don can read.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. 13. Nayam yatat pravakshami yajnatva mitamachnute anatmat param brahma nasatam nasadujyate. I shall now explain the knowable, knowing which you will taste the eternal. This is beginningless, and it is subordinate to me. It is called Brahman, the spirit, and it lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. 14.
What's the individual soul?
Savataha pani parantat savato kishe sirumukam savataha shrutima loke savam avritya titishtati. Everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes and faces, and he hears everything. In this way, the super soul exists. 15. Savendriya guna vasham, savendriya vivattam, ashaktam savavricheva, nigunam guna bhuktidracha. The super soul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses. He is unattached, although he is the maintenance of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time he is the master of all modes of material nature. 16. Ahiyantascha bhutanam acharam charam evacha sukshmat vatad agneyam durushtam kanchite kachaktat. The supreme truth exists both internally and externally, in the moving and non-moving. He is beyond the power of the material senses to see or to know. Although far, far away, he is also near to all. 17. Avibhaktam cha bhuteshu vibhaktam eva chastikam bhuta bhakticha tajñayam grashishnu pravavishcha. Although the super soul appears to be divided, he is never divided. He is situated as one. Although he is the maintainer of every living entity, it is to be understood that he devours and develops all. 18. Jyotisham api taj jyotis tamasaha param uchite jnanam nyayam jnanagam yam hridi savasya vishtitam. He is the source of light in all luminous objects. He is beyond the darkness of matter and is unmanifested. He is knowledge. He is the object of knowledge, and he is the goal of knowledge. He is situated in everyone's heart. 19. Iti kshetram tata jnanam Neyam choktum samastata mad bhaktai tad vijnaya mad bhavayo papatyate. Thus, the field of activities, the body, knowledge, and the knowable have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature. 20.
Yes, stop at 19.
Okay.
Okay. So Kshetra, knowledge, Jnana, the field, Kshetra, knowledge, Jnana, and Gya, the knowable. So we've discussed all those things now. And so the next section, I'll talk about the material energy and the controller of the material energy. So there are two. There's only one real controller, and that's the super soul. We have the same tendency, because we found parcel of Krishna, to try and control. So in that way, when we try to control, we sometimes call the Purusha. So now we know the three things in detail, you know, the constituents of knowledge, in other words, the constituents of this body and how it works, and how to obtain that knowledge, and the two souls who are trying to understand, or one soul's trying to understand, and the other super soul who's overseeing everything. So we've covered each thing that was asked by Arjuna in the 12th chapter. So now we're going to see how the living entity is connected with this world. Now we know how it's, you know, the different what's the word? The different objects, or the, you know, now we're talking about how they're connected, how we're connected with this material world, how the super soul's working, like that, and how we're working in relation to both super soul and the body. Yeah, so yeah, Paramatma we've just described. Okay, and Jiva. So now we got in the last few verses. Now we're going to go on to 20, and maybe we can change readers. What about Anthony? Would you like to read?
Okay. So text 20. Prakritim Purusham Chiva Vidyande Duravar Api Vikaramscha Gunamschaiva Vidhi Prakriti Sambhavan. Material nature and the living entity should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformation and the mode of matter are products of material nature.
So what do you mean by beginningless?
Beginningless, does it mean there's no beginning? Always has been?
It's because they're beginningless, because they're energies of Krishna. That's what it means. The material energy is existing as an energy, but it's sometimes manifested and not manifested, that's all. So in that respect, when it's manifested, we say it begins, and when it's unmanifested, we say it ends. But he's saying that it's an eternal energy of the Lord. That's what it means by beginningless. And yeah. Okay, so carry on.
Okay, number 21. Karva Karana Katrivi Hetu Prakte Uchati Parusha Sukha Dukanam Bhaktrad Vihetaruchate. Nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments of the world.
So what does that mean? It means that, you know, according to, you know, the material energies causing the situation, the three modes of nature, it's working on our mind and intelligence. It's working on, you know, the body. It's creating situations which are according to our karma. So that's what it means by is the cause. The material nature is the cause. But, you know, because we desire to enjoy it, we're the cause of our happiness and distress. Yeah. If we don't desire to enjoy it, then we can experience, you know, a different type of experience, you know, spiritual happiness. Okay, 22. So this next verse, this is a very important verse. It explains how we're actually, you know, being transmitted through this material world lifetime after lifetime. And the point it's making is it's due to association. according to what we associate with, eventually that will become prominent in our consciousness, and that will be the next destination. Okay. Carry on.
Text 22. Parusha Prakriti Stohi Bhunkte Prakriti Janganam Karanam Guna Sangocha Sadashad Yoni Jammashu. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil amongst various species.
Okay, so, but it's not just that. It's not that, we just desire a certain thing and it actually comes to fruition. It's actually being overseen. And so the next verse talks about the super soul's position in relation to this. Man, we say man proposes and God disposes. So the next verse is going to talk about how the super soul disposes, how he gives permission for things to actually take place according to the desire and the deserve of the individual soul. Carry on.
Text 23. Yupadrashtu Numanantacha Bharta Bhakta Mahishvara Param Meti Chapyuto Dehishmin Purasha Para. Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter, and who is known as the supersoul.
That's Upadrashta Anumanta. Upadrashta means he's the overseer. He's seeing everything, he's witnessing everything. And permitter, or the sanctioner, is called Anumanta. Bharta is the Supreme Lord. Sorry. Bharta Bhakta Maheshvaraha. So Bharta means Supreme Master, and Bhakta means proprietor. Okay. Maheshvaraha also means Supreme Controller. So that's the position of the super soul. Okay, it's gradually coming together. Next one.
Text 24. Ye evam veti purusham prakritim cha ganeshaha sarvata vatamanopi nashubayo vijajati. One who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position.
Yeah, so when you realize you're just in like a matrix, and you're being controlled at every moment, and the result is I'm suffering like anything. If we're actually are able to understand that, we're not going to stay in that position, are we? But it's all dependent on our desire ultimately. What we're desiring will take us to our next situation. So if we don't want to understand that, Krishna won't reveal it. We can carry on. So, the first thing is to develop a desire. If we develop a desire, even though we may be a long way from actually being able to put that desire into practice, it's a start, and that will develop eventually. Okay. So we can change readers. Mayapur Chandra Dayapur.
Yes, Hare Krishna. Verse 25. Dhyane natmani pashyanti kechit atmanam atmana ane sankyena yogena karma yogena chapare. Some perceive the super soul within themselves through meditation, others through the cultivation of knowledge, and still others through working without fruitive desires.
So meditation to yogis, cultivation knowledge to jnanis, and then fruitive workers the karmis. But then he's going to explain that even if you're not actually one of those who are searching, you can still actually understand. And this is the one where it's talking about hearing. Carry on.
Verse 26. Anye tvevam janantach shrutva bhya pasate te pichati tarantyeva mrityum shruti parayanaha. Again, there are those two, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death.
So that's our position.
Yeah.
We're hearing from Prabhupada. And because we're actually open to it, then we're actually increasing our determination and understanding. Okay.
Verse 27. Yavat sanjayate kinchit sattvam stavara jangamam kshetra kshetragyas samyoga tadvidhi bharata rishabha. O chief of the Bharatas, know that whatever you see in existence, both the moving and unmoving, is only combination of the field of activities and the knower of the field.
Yes. So this is one of the things it'll mention later on, that if we properly understand that, then we can get liberation. That we're being controlled, in other words. Carry on.
Samach sarveshu bhuteshu tishtantam parameshvaram vinashyatsva vinashyantam yah pashyantich sapashyati. One who sees the super soul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies, and who understands that neither the soul nor the super soul within the destructible body is ever destroyed, actually sees. Verse 29.
So, so this is a little bit more information. We may understand, as it said in the previous verse, whatever you see in existence, both moving and non-moving, is a combination of soul and, individual, or soul and the material energy. So a lot of people may get that understanding, but in Bhagavadgita, in the second chapter, he said it's very few people who actually put the super soul into the equation. They don't know there's a super sanctioner. Because then if they do understand that, they've got to start accepting the existence of a supreme person, of a controlling entity greater than them. And so Krishna doesn't, it is confidential knowledge. First confidential knowledge is to understand we're not the body, and that, our relationship with the material energy. And more confidential is to understand there is a controller, which we're talking about now. But then, most confidential is to understand that we can have a relationship with that supreme person. He's an individual, and it's not just a guide within the heart, but he actually has a field of activities beyond this material field. So all these things are gradually revealed to the sincere inquirer. Everything's dependent on sincerity of purpose, nothing more. If we're sincere, then we can make progress. And 30?
We still didn't read 29, Maharaj. So if
Oh,
I can
sorry.
finish. Samam pashyan hi sarvatra samavastitam ishvaram nahinastyatma natmanam tato yati param gatim. One who sees the super soul equally present everywhere in every living being does not degrade himself by his mind. Thus he approaches the transcendental destination.
Yeah, so, we tend to blame others, but we don't, if we understand the super soul's work in that, and we start to check ourselves from seeing on just the externals and see that, Krishna's at work in this situation. So how should I, it's not going the way I want it to, but should I over endeavor and even become angry, or should I just learn to see what, Krishna wants in the situation? Okay.
Verse 30. Prakrityaiva cha karmani kriyamanani sarvashaha yah pashyanti tatatmanam akartaram sapashyati. One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees.
Yeah, so this is not so easy to understand. We are the doer, but we're not the doer as well. It depends how we look at it. The body is actually, putting everything into action. There's a lot more going off behind that, but this is dealing with that particular situation that, according to our conditioning, the body is acting according to the modes of nature, which it's actually paired with. We've got a particular body which reacts to particular modes of nature. We've got a particular mind which thinks in a certain way according to the modes of nature. We've got a particular time of intelligence which acts according to the modes of nature. So, what we think we're one of those things. We either think with the body, or we think with the mind, and maybe even we think with the intelligence. And so this is all, it's all bull. It's not correct. We're none of those things. We're actually something different. So this is what this particular verse is saying. That in that respect, we're just watching things happen. And, it's difficult to understand because we are putting some input into it. Or we think we are. But why are we putting that input into it? Because we're conditioned to do it that way. Anybody like to give an example?
I don't know if it's an appropriate example, but when the person is watching cinema and sitting in the cinema and something is happening in front of his eyes and he thinks that it's reality, but actually he is aloof as a soul. Is it appropriate, Maharaj?
Yeah, it's happening. It's definitely happening. But it's happening. It's not that he's actually directly in control of anything. It's happening because at some point he's desired things to, a particular type of body to be in that situation and a particular type of mind to be in that situation. So he's being carried by his previous desires, and his present situation, he's actually thinking that, he's in control of it, but it's not. It's been all arranged for him to be in that situation due to his past. Now, he has got a bit of free will within that, but it's very, very, it's even that free will is actually coming from the mind. You know what I mean? We completely controlled. And therefore, Krishna consciousness is the only way out, that we follow superior guidance in what to do and what not to do. And then we can come out of that situation. We don't we don't make choices anymore about what to enjoy, what not to enjoy. We follow good guidance and we enjoy what we're told to enjoy. And that's, the process of devotional service. So in that way, we've come to a different game. We're not trying to enjoy things anymore. We're trying to center all our enjoyment around the directions of Shastra and the Acharyas. And that's what we're doing in this movement. And if we're in doubt about that, just think about what we used to be before we came. Well, I don't know about myself, but I couldn't imagine that I'd be doing what I'm doing now, before I actually started practicing devotional service. If somebody had told me that, I would think they were crackers, but it's a fact. Anyway, we're going into a bit of detail now, but that we're trying to say about how things are happening, that we're just, we're not doing anything in that respect. And now we've come under, so we were under the control of the three modes of material energy, but now we're following the guidance of the Acharyas and the Shastras. So now that energy is taking charge of us. So this is the divine energy. We've come back under the control of the divine energy. We're actually prakriti, we're controlled and enjoyed. So we have to come under the control of one of those energies. But the illusion is we think we're actually doing everything. And so when we try to when we try to do things in the internal potency, the divine energy, then, Yoga Maya is making all arrangements for us to do those things to serve Krishna, instead of to actually take us away from Krishna. Okay, what were we on? 30, 20, or 29?
39, 31, sorry, 31.
Okay, 31. When is it? Yeah.
Okay, if you want to change reader, Maharaj.
Okay, I'll read it. Yada bhuta vichag bhavam ekastam anupashyati tata eva chabishcharam rama sampadyate tada. When a sensible man ceases to see different identities due to different material bodies, and he sees how beings are expanded everywhere, he attains a Brahman conception. So this is impersonal. We're not just seeing the body, and he's from Africa, he's from this place, he does this, and he does that. We're actually seeing that in each and everybody, there's a spiritual nature which is controlling everything. So this is impersonal understanding, Gyan. Those anadit vam nirgunat bhat paramatmayam avyayha sharirastopi konteya nakaroti nalipite. Those with the vision of eternity can see that the imperishable soul is transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of nature. Despite contact with the material body, O Arjuna, the soul neither does anything nor is entangled. So it's just like, in space, in the air, it's not connected with anything. We're all existing in space, right? We're not connected with it. Or in other words, it's like the moon. The moon shines on pots of water. It looks like there's several different pots of water, or there's several moons. But, it's not actually the moon. The moon's actually up above, and the moon in the water is a temporary thing. So in that way, we're also not connected with this world. We're just thinking we're connected. We're not connected with it at all. Through consciousness, that's all. So therefore, if we change the consciousness, we can change everything. That's the process, Krishna consciousness. What are we now? What are we on? 33, isn't it? Yata sarabhagatam sukshmyat akasham no paliyate shrabashtito dehe atama no palipyate. The sky due to its subtleness, it does not mix with anything, although it is all pervading. Similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, though situated in the body. Yata prakashayat yekaha Krishnam lokam imam ravihi Shetram shetri tata Krishnam prakashayati bharata. O son of Bharat, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness. Kshetragnaya evam antaram jnana chakshushaha uta prakriti moksham cha ye viduryanti te param. Those who see with the eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body, and can also understand the process of liberation, can from bondage in material nature attain the supreme goal. So this is called jnanam, high knowledge. We're understanding our position and we're performing activities which won't entangle us in the material world. But Prabhupada added the purports with bhakti. Obviously, there's some bhakti even in Gyan, because Gyan is coming from Shastra and Shastra is coming from Krishna, so there's some bhakti in the activity. If we're just taking Gyan from anywhere and it's not connected with Krishna, there'll be no result. But a devotee, he has bhakti. He doesn't just have Gyan, which is in the second part of Bhagavadgita. Because of Prabhupada's input in the purports, we'll relate in everything, and we can actually take advantage of this Gyan in our devotional service if necessary. At least to convince us that all we have to do is render service in a positive way to try and please Krishna. Then all this Gyan is taken care of. We're actually fulfilling the purpose of this particular 13th chapter. All right, isn't it? It's a lot easier than having to plough through all that. Okay, any questions? Looks like we had a few casualties from last time. So anyway, what can you do? Okay, so it's time I was going. So
I
we'll
think
see you all
Sita Sakarani had a question, didn't she?
Well, I gotta go. Tell you what, write your question down, and we'll ask them all next week, right?
Yes.
Write it down and then I'll answer. It's just that I've got to go now. Okay, Hare Krishna, everybody.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Bol. Hare Bol.